We all know the Titanic sank. We've heard about the iceberg, the insufficient lifeboats, the lives lost. But beyond the tragedy lies something deeper, a story not of wealth, but of worth. This is the tale of John Jacob Astor IV, a man so rich he could have bought his survival, in Ida and Isidor Straus, a couple who proved love doesn't drown. When faced with death, they didn't reach for their wallets, they reached for their humanity. What did they do in those final moments? And why does it still matter today? Let us know where you are watching from, what time you found this video, and leave a like and a comment. Let's get back to the story. The RMS Titanic is a name that goes hand in hand with luxury, tragedy, and tales of people that will live on in infamy. During that terrible night in April 1912, there were 2,224 people on board, and two of the richest passengers were presented with a decision that would not add their names to the annals of history because of their wealth, but rather because of their bravery. As a billionaire, John Jacob Astor IV was not your typical figure. He was the wealthiest individual on board the Titanic, with a net worth that is comparable to $2.5 billion in today's currency. The guy known as Astor was a man of many abilities, including being an inventor, a real estate developer, and even a writer of science fiction. He had just tied the knot with his young bride, Madeline, and the two of them were on their way back from their honeymoon in Europe when the unfortunate event occurred. At the moment when the ship collided with the iceberg, Astor maintained his composure and even joked about the predicament at first. As the gravity of the situation became more apparent, he assisted his pregnant wife in entering Lifeboat 4. Following then, an unusual occurrence took place. Two scared children, a boy and a girl, were separated from their parents in the turmoil that occurred as the lifeboat was being lowered. As it was being lowered, as soon as Astor saw how distressed they were, he did the unimaginable. While he was lifting the children into the boat, he was fully aware that doing so would require him to give up his own seat. According to other sources, he even made a joke about it, saying, "I asked for ice, but this is ridiculous." His last deed was one of selflessness, regardless of whether or not it was genuine. Following that, he took a step back, so enabling others to take his position. Later on, his corpse was found and recognized by the gold pocket watch that he was carrying. This watch was a representation of the fact that time had run out for him, but it had not ran out for others whom he had spared. Another rich couple in the neighborhood was confronted with the same difficult decision. Seats aboard a lifeboat were made available to Isidor Straus and his wife Ida, who were both co-owners of the department company, Macy's Department Company. But when Isidor was informed that only women and children were permitted to board, he refused to accept a seat from anybody else. The gesture of commitment that Ida displayed by refusing to leave him is one that continues to reverberate throughout history. The statement was made by her when she handed her fur coat and seat to her maid, Ellen Bird. "Where you go, I go," she proclaimed. It was alleged by witnesses that the elderly couple was seen sitting comfortably on deck chairs and holding hands as the ship went down. As a last terrible demonstration of love that is more powerful than death, several people claimed that they were last seen hugging each other near the grand staircase. The disturbing question that arises from these tales is, what would you do if you were in their position? When first-class passengers were given preference during that time period, Astor and the Strauses made the decision to choose humanity above privilege. Their acts serve as a reminder that genuine wealth is not measured in bank accounts, but rather in the decisions that we make when everything is on the line. Will you put your faith in these accounts? However, several survivors attested to their bravery, despite the fact that some historians disagree about the specifics. The world likes to think that even in the face of death, there are those souls that shine brightest. And this is the reason why their mythology continues to live on, regardless of whether it is completely factual or somewhat exaggerated by time. It is not true that the tales of John Jacob Astor, Ida Straus, and Isidor Straus were lost upon the sinking of the Titanic. They, on the other hand, became rays of light in a world that was struggling to come to terms with the enormity of the calamity. In the midst of the mayhem that night, their decisions, which seemed to be insignificant, reverberated outward and inspired generations. In Lifeboat 4, what happened to the two youngsters whom Astor had assisted to get over? Despite the fact that there are little records available, there are scholars who think that they were people traveling in third class, probably immigrants traveling with family who did not escape. There is a high probability that they were never exposed to the identity of the billionaire, who provided them with a future. There is a notion that says that one of them was a small kid, who was later discovered clinging to wreckage. His parents were killed, but his life was preserved by the last act of charity performed by an unknown person. As he was growing up, did he ever worry about the guy who was wearing the elegant suit and who had saved his life? Is it possible that he told his own children the account of the sacrifice that took place in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean? In Lifeboat 8, Ida Strauss's maid, Ellen Bird, was one of the lucky survivors. The following is a description of the last moments that she had with her mistress. She smiled at me, pressed her coat into my hands, and said, "Keep warm, Ellen. Have a happy life." Ellen did have a happy life. Ida's fur coat was something she wore for the rest of her life, not as a sign of riches, but rather as a reminder of the lady who prioritized love above life. She married, had children, and wore it for the rest of her life. The aroma of rose perfume and seawater can still be detected in the coat, which is now being kept to preserve it in a museum. Historians do not all agree on the dying moments of John Jacob Astor. Some people believe that he fell to his death while attempting to rescue passengers who were stranded below deck and never made it to the lifeboats. However, there are many who maintain that he was last seen enjoying a cigarette on deck, content with his destiny. Why, however, does the tale of his rescuing children continue to circulate? One possible explanation is that, in the midst of tragedy, we need heroes. Despite all of his shortcomings, Astor exemplified the best of mankind at the times when it meant the most. His narrative, whether it is based on reality or myth, encourages us to ask ourselves, what would we give up? The letter was discovered in a dusty attic several decades after the sinking. It was a message that Isidore had written to Ida on the occasion of their 40th wedding anniversary. The text read, "My beloved Ida, life has been the most incredible journey we have ever had. In the event that storms arrive, I will be by your side until the very end, just as I have always done." The devotion of the pair became a cultural shorthand for love that would last forever. A monument that can be seen at Strauss Park in New York City carries the following inscription, "Lovely and pleasant they were in their lives, and in death they were not divided." Verse 23 of To Samuel, it would have been possible for Astor and the Strausses to utilize their wealth and power to ensure their own safety. Rather than that, they gave up something that was far more valuable. This is a lesson in bravery. Privilege is meaningless if it is not accompanied by conviction. It is a demonstration of love that some relationships are unbreakable, even in the face of death, the living face of challenge. What will we do when we are put to the test? The last thought, the truth that cannot be sunk. There is a possibility that the debris of the Titanic may rust away at the bottom of the ocean, but these tales will not sink. In a civilization that is preoccupied with prosperity and social standing, Astor and the Strausses whisper across the ages, "You can't take it with you, but you can leave behind a light." Do you think that it is true? Perhaps it is the incorrect question to ask. Will you allow it to alter who you are? Is a more pertinent question.